welcome. Today I am thrilled, actually, to host one of the co-founders and the president of Kiva, an organization that HP is partnered with in a Matter to a Million campaign. For those of you who are not familiar, the basics are that the HP Foundation has committed to donating $7 million to Kiva over the next 5 years, right? And I think, I think it's a great thing. The way that HP is dispersing the funds is by letting us do it, which I think is really amazing. Each one of you has a $25 gift certificate, basically, to go online to Kiva and donate whoever you want to. You can pick whoever you want to get this money, which I think is a very cool way. Every large company has a philanthropy strategy, but they don't always let the employees pick who gets it. So I just think that's great. And one more thing before I turn it over to Premal, I just think it's such a perfect partnership with HP because we try to be leading the way in innovation and technology and services. Kiva leads the way. They have a very innovative financial services product. They make capital accessible to people all around the world who normally would not have it. Entrepreneurs to start their own businesses, make their own economies stronger. So I'm so excited about this partnership between Kiva and HP. And now I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Liz. Liz, thank you so much for organizing this. And I can't tell you how excited we are at Kiva HQ, which is in San Francisco, as well as our staff all around the world that works with our field partners and the borrowers that you see up on the website. This has been an absolutely game-changing partnership. I want to just show you some of the results. Next slide, please. I don't know if you've seen how many of you in this audience have actually claimed your $25 Kiva trial? Okay, great. So it's by far the most successful engagement we've had in our 8-year history. And I just want to walk through the numbers, the collective impact of the Hewlett-Packard employee base. It blows us away. First of all, 87,000 HP employees in the first month have already participated. And it's employees all around the world. And we've heard just amazing stories. One story is of a woman in England who decided, instead of lending her $25 when she got that email from Henry Gomez that day, instead of lending it right there at her desk, she wanted to go home that night and do it with her children. And she thought, this would be really fun for her kids to kind of help advise her who to pick with the $25 on the website. And what was interesting is one of her sons said, I can't wait to go to school the next day because I want to tell all my classmates how cool Mommy's company is because they help people all around the world. And we just saw people sharing the experience with people in their family and some of the other friends, and it's just been something that has been so meaningful for us to watch because it's not only the people who are receiving the money, but also seeing the types of people, and particularly young people. So for those of you who have kids and you haven't used your $25 yet, we think it's a great way to just kind of show people a little bit more about not only world geography and economics and businesses all around the world, but really a lesson in empathy. So we're really excited about that. Some of the top sectors that you've invested in, agriculture and food and retail are your top 3 sectors. And you can see that HP employees overwhelmingly are lending to women over men. On the website today, it reflects the numbers on the site. Usually 3 out of 4 businesses on the Kiva website are women-run businesses, so it's that would make sense. And $2.5 million of the original amount of nearly $7 million that's been allocated for this 5-year partnership has already been redeemed. So, we've really just been blown away. To be honest, we didn't expect this level of global participation so fast, and it's been a fantastic, hopeful thing that, frankly, I know that even Meg, on some of the other boards she sits on, has been telling other companies, hey, you should see what HP is doing, and you should, hey Procter & Gamble, hey XYZ. She's actually telling other companies, so it's a really amazing almost demonstration of what employees worldwide can do if given an opportunity to do something together. So I just wanted to convey that in all sincerity. Now, if you go to the next slide, you'll see that on Kiva, this is a screenshot of the Kiva lending teams. Just like on Facebook, there are Facebook groups, so you could say belong to your alumni association, so on and so forth. The top team now of all time in terms of new users, you'll see how HP is at the top. It's now, it's larger at 87,000 people than the atheists, the Christians, Google, Team Canada. It's pretty interesting to see how HP has kind of risen to the top in terms of the group of people lending, and there's over 30,000 Kiva lending teams. Some of them are irreverent, like there's a group of kind of we like to lend to shirtless men. There are groups that are kind of more serious in nature, like memorials. There's over 3,000 schools and universities that have their own group, either when they do it together. But it just, again, on our website, you can't miss it when you go to the Teams page. HP has really just blown everything out of the water. So, all right, enough celebration about the partnership, but I just wanted to convey our gratitude on behalf of the people we serve. Let me tell you a little bit about my story. This is the suburbs of Minnesota, for what you can see here. And for those listening in on the phone, behind me is a picture of just kind of a suburban landscape. And I was raised in Minnesota, and it was just a great blessing, frankly, for my parents to be able to have the education and be able to immigrate from India to the United States. And when I was 5 years old, they took me back to India to visit my grandparents. And it was the first time in my conscious life that I've been to India. So if you go to the next slide, India was, as a 5-year-old, it was incredible, and there's such a rich culture. It was a little overwhelming. I remember, I was surprised to see that my mom knew how to ride a moped. I was surprised to see, cows in the street in the village that my dad was raised in. And my mom was fantastic because she allowed me to eat ice cream every day, which was uncharacteristic of her. But one of the things that really stuck with me, and I'm sure anyone who's had a chance to, travel to places like India, say in the developing world, you can see a level of poverty and destitution that is really heartbreaking. And I'd like to share a story where when I was walking in the market with my mom, she let me hold, a 1 rupee coin, and there was street vendors kind of calling out to us. We had to kind of dodge kind of other people. It was quite a busy scene, and we had gone in the rainy season, so it was pretty muddy, and there's also sewage running along the side of this market. So, my mom held me, with one hand and kind of tried to have me kind of pull me through the market. And in that process, I dropped the coin accidentally. And I'll always remember, turning around and trying to kind of, wanting to kind of grab it, and my mom not wanting her 5-year-old son to get his hands dirty. She just pulled me away. It's 1 rupee, it's really not worth too much money. So she kind of pulled me in one direction, and then a woman in a ragged sari who was older than my mom, she must have been a beggar in the marketplace, she walked over, picked up this coin from the ground, then looked up at the sky thinking, God, and then tucked it away in her blouse, in her sari blouse. And, what my mom's willing to let go of or really throw away is something that can answer someone else's prayers. There's this kind of constant sense of, how do you make sense of this? And all I knew is that it just felt wrong. And I think there's so many things for each one of us that we know are just, if we quiet ourselves down and just reflect back on our own experience, we know this is just not the way we want the world to be. But as we grow older, we just start accepting things, or we're conditioned to believe that we can't change it. And the fundamental premise of Kiva is to not try to make each one of our problems the problem of trying to change the whole world. We just have to change it for one person. And if we can make it personal, if we can make it one by one, it can really then cascade into something that really starts making collective impact. So I want to talk to you about a pivotal moment. I worked at, if you go to the next slide, I worked at, like you all, at a technology company in my 20s, PayPal. And when I was there, you know, I was really excited about what we were building, and went back to India during my time at PayPal 5 out of 6 times. So all my vacations I'd kind of go back to India, just because I wanted to stay close to this feeling that I had. You know, it's a place that was really important for me. Well, on one of those trips, they allowed me to go for actually a couple of months sabbatical after being there for 5 years. And I was working with a group of artisans in a slum in Ahmedabad, Gujarat. It's India's 10th largest city, and I was helping them sell their items up on eBay to help them create new income streams. But you know, what I wondered is geez, so many of these women, if they could actually get access to more capital, they could make more, they could buy, you know, a sewing machine, they could buy 2 sewing machines, they could actually kind of scale up production and earn more money. Wouldn't it be cool if you could PayPal a microloan to someone? So instead of listing their items up on eBay, I put up actually one of the borrowers, a test borrower, up on the test category of eBay, just to see as a prototype. You know, now everyone's into kind of rapid prototyping, things like this. This is just curious, back in 2005, early 2005, if someone would want to PayPal me a microloan. And the way it would work on eBay is there's this Buy It Now button, and I figured if I put a $100 microloan request, if someone hit Buy It Now, then I'd get the money in my PayPal account, I'd pull it out via my PayPal ATM debit card in Ahmedabad in Indian rupees, give the money to her, and then over time, that money would be collected from one of my friends, and you know, we just do it at 0% interest, see what happens, see if we could get this done. Well, it turns out that when I tried this on the eBay website, it turns out it's illegal. That the compliance division of eBay does not allow for loans to be solicited on the eBay website. In fact, they had no idea I was an employee of eBay because, you know, I had an anonymous handle like SalsaBoy20 or something. So basically, it got taken down. But I was so excited about, hey, maybe there's a way to do this. Maybe not on the eBay website, but maybe on another website. And it was then when I came back, and there's a number of people at eBay Inc. who were really supportive of it, including, frankly, Meg, of just like having me try to explore this. And then I left to join a couple other people who were working on a small prototype website called Kiva. And what I'd love to do is show you a little bit about how Kiva works for those people who haven't actually had a chance to make a loan yet. So some people describe Kiva as Match.com meets impact investing. And what you can do is on this website see profiles of small businesses all around the planet, now in 75 countries, including right here in the United States. And if there's one that catches your interest, for example, Roy Lacone here, who is in Kyrgyzstan, you can see that she wants to buy cows for fattening and resale for $1,800, right? Then what you can do, is if you hit the next slide, is in $25 increments, you can basically allocate the $25 that you get. So that'd be your first loan. But if you were to make a future loan, you could, you know, pick $50, $75, whichever feels right for you. Then what happens is you, as well as people from all around the internet community and your fellow colleagues, would help crowdfund this loan to the point where it's 100% raised. Then what happens is Kiva on the ground, Roy Lacone, she might not have access to the internet and certainly online payments. So we work through local field partners. There's over 250 local field partners all around the planet that we do due diligence on, not only for their ability to administer your loan, but also for the services that they provide the poor that help them become successful. Oftentimes in business education, market support. Some of them even provide health services. It's really incredible what they're doing beyond just the credit itself. we pick these organizations, and they're kind of like bankers on bicycles, if you will. They get out to rural villages. They're the ones who are taking the photos, putting up the stories online, and administering your loan. And then if you go to the next slide, he repays her loan. That organization on the ground will collect that money, that they're called field partners, and then they send that back to Kiva, and then Kiva software disseminates it back to you all. Now the way it works with this program is that that money will go back to a central fund here at HP, and then we will reissue new $25 codes to you so that you can relend. And the whole goal is that as you start trying the Kiva website, and if it appeals to you, we'd love for people to start putting in their own money. And it really is a loan, not a donation. In fact, over the last 8 years now, over $500 million has been lent out in $25 increments, and the repayment rate is 98% on the website. So it is something that if you put in your own money, you lend it out, you can actually, when you get it repaid back, and the average loan term is a year on Kiva, you get paid back in monthly installments, and you get an email notification, right? You can pull the money out of your account, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Here's my portfolio on Kiva. You can see I have $1,100 outstanding in the field with a portfolio of recent loans all around the planet. And then I actually, this is kind of shame on me, $169, $170 that's sitting in available Kiva credit that really ought to be in the hands of the working poor. And so I really need to get around and redeploy that, get back onto the Kiva site and lend to small businesses. And so you can see that if you do put in your own money, you can basically relend that money or withdraw it back to your PayPal or bank account. Some people also buy Kiva gift cards because it makes a really cool, holiday gifts, so on and so forth. In fact, Oprah, on her Favorite Things episode, called it out and our website crashed, so that was pretty exciting. Had we been using HP services, it might not have crashed. Let's go. The next thing provides a visualization. Looks like it's not working. Can you push play? And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's okay. You know what? We have a video we have 2 engineers. The way we do software development is, we're on 2-week sprint cycles, and 1 out of every 5 kind of iterations or cycles, we call it innovation iteration, and it's where our engineers have the ability to do anything they want. There's no product manager lording over them, no business requirements. They just get to build what they would like to build. And it's interesting, code check-ins really kind of increase during this time because there's a lot of times that some people just want to really clean up something, and they're, or some people do some really just amazing, brilliant things. And one thing that 2 of our engineers did is they looked at the data over the last 8 years, and they created basically a visualization. And I'm so sorry that you can't see it here, but I just want to explain the process. It looks like intercontinental ballistic microfinance. It's the world that's actually sending money back and forth to each other in over 180 countries. And it's not just people, for example, in the US, obviously, who are lending abroad. It's people, for example, in Nairobi, Kenya, lending money to people in Oakland, California. The way that money is shifting back and forth is pretty exciting. So we'll see if we can get that video to work at the end. Now, the next slide shows you a little bit about kind of the growth. And what I wanted to say is that as word of mouth spreads and as partnerships like HP emerge, it really becomes an internet public good that tries to make capital access more just spread to everyone. And I want to show you the problem statement today. The problem is that even though Kiva has basically, microfinance itself has reached about 150 million people on the planet. And Kiva, we actually just crossed over 1 million small businesses that have received financing on the website. The problem statement is that there's still 2.5 billion people on the planet today who lack access to formal financial services. And so, one of the things that we keep thinking about is how do we actually accelerate the microfinance where it's currently perceived to be too risky or too costly by the local banks today. And I'm going to show you a few examples of what we mean. If this were Kenya, and you can, Liz, can you flip? Everyone from here to here, 3/4 of us would be rural subsistence farmers. Now, the cost of actually reaching you, I mean, imagine kind of, going 3 hours out at the end of a dirt road to actually reach someone with financial services. It's just so high that banks are really unable to do that. And so without access to savings, insurance, credit, payments, imagine how our lives would be so much more difficult to manage. And particularly when there's an opportunity to, say, make money where it requires investment, if you're shut out of that system or your only available options are like a village money lender or a loan shark, it really makes it difficult for you to kind of build your way and your family's way out of poverty. So I want to talk about some of the things that you all are funding on Kiva, just looking at Kenya and agriculture and how we're helping smallholder farmers. Next slide. This is an actual Kiva borrower. Hopefully it's not.
You know what? Yeah, I
There'll be
don't.
subtitles. That's all right.
Okay,
If
okay.
you sit in silence, you can see that.
Okay.
Hopefully you can read the subtitles. So for those of you on the phone who are even unable to see that, that was a long period of silence. But what we just showed here was a Kiva borrower named Jacqueline. Jacqueline, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes. But you kind of got her reflections on how she viewed microfinance in her life as she tries to provide for her family. And she has 4 children in school. She's a Kenyan farmer. And her hopes are that one of her children would actually become a doctor. So you can see she raised $875 to help purchase a dairy cow. Now let me walk you through the dairy cow economics in Kenya. Our partner on the ground, they do what's called asset-based financing. So instead of just getting $875 for Jacqueline to go and buy a cow in the market, they've actually done something pretty interesting. They've actually found a German variety and they crossbred it with a local variety, and it produces 4 times the milk profits per day. You can actually see how big this hybrid is versus the local cow that's available, and you can see the profits per day is $4 a day versus $1 a day from this type of cow. It's very, very important that for these rural subsistence farmers we create new income streams that helps absorb shocks when, say, there's a drought or a pest. If we can diversify ways that they're making money. So this is such a great thing. It's almost like the heifer model in which you're financing a cow. Sometimes it is actually a 2-for-1 where the cow is pregnant, it's being provided. And if you flip to the next slide, this is the role of kind of where I think technology has such a great way of actually reaching people who are rural and very costly to serve. One of the issues is cow health. So you get this cow, but if the cow obviously isn't maintained, or if it gets unhealthy and it dies, then you've lost this asset, right? So it's a really big setback for that family, as well as for our local partner, Juhudi Kalimo, that's provided this cow, as well as for the Kiva lenders who've helped finance this cow. So we want to keep the cow healthy. Well, what's really interesting is we have a program called the Kiva Fellows Program. It allows basically professionals to go for a minimum of 4 months to the field. We train you in San Francisco. We have 3 classes a year, and then we ship you out to one of 75 countries. And one of our fellows actually was someone who understood how to, I guess, program a mobile phone, a basic phone. And so he created a loan update survey tool where you can see it goes, "Dear Francis, we'd like to invite you to a 4-question survey about your loan. You can reply either in English or Swahili," so you type in, say, English. And then it goes, "How is your cow doing? A, great, B, well, C, okay, or D, poorly." And then you can reply with B, or D. And then based on that, it can actually help diagnose what might be happening with your cow. And one of the challenges, again, is how do you keep people informed and educated who are so far away? And we think mobile technology, in addition to representing kind of great advances in communications, it's great advances obviously in just health, education, animal husbandry, and also in Kenya, one of the really exciting things that's happening now is that mobile payments has really taken hold, where 3/4 of the adult population is using a service called M-Pesa. M-Pesa allows me to say, send money to Liz. Liz can write on my phone on stored value. And then Liz can go over to, say, a gas station attendant, send money to the gas station attendant. The gas station attendant will pull out Kenyan shillings, the local currency, from her till, from her cash register, and give it to Liz. So it really is converted, even the most rural farmer into someone who can actually have money on their stored value, and it's really taken out a lot of the friction of reaching people. So yeah, this is a very exciting thing. In fact, one Kiva borrower who got money on her cell phone said, in addition to kind of the lower cost it confers, she said, "My husband may try to break into my cell phone, but he'll never get the money off my SIM." And what it meant for her was basically a sense of control and agency around the money that she had earned. And I think that's also a really powerful thing. So, what we're doing together in this age, us here at SAE in technology, as well as the focus on some of the biggest problems on the planet, over the next 10, 20, 30 years, there's such a case for optimism that I see, because things that are structurally so hard to do, for example, reaching rural farmer populations with high quality services and access, I think we can really bend the cost curve together. By the way, this M-Pesa system, I had read recently that 20% of the value of the GDP in Kenya now, it's estimated, is going through this system. So, in many ways, all of us kind of we're on the innovation forefront. I live out in California, and we like to think, oh wow, we're innovating and so on and so forth. But I think in some ways that what's happening in Kenya is really the future when it comes to mobile payments. And now there's 6 other countries that have mobile payments where there's over 1 million people. So I think this is kind of an exciting thing that maybe one day will spread even right here in the US. Let me go to the next slide. This right here is OGLA. OGLA, basically, you could have financed your loan of $350 for beehives. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the next slide, please. Honey Care, which is the group on the ground that is basically providing her beehives. Again, rural subsistence farmer, we want to get her more things that create diversified income streams. So you can see right here that these hives are what a farmer would get. And when Honey Care Africa first started, about 10 years ago, it was very widely celebrated. They had won an award from the World Bank. It was seen as like this really amazing thing because, one, you're helping the farmer get a new income stream. In fact, the average farmer will get about $250 of income from the honey. 2, if you have bees on your land, it cross-pollinates, which basically increases your crop yields by 20 to 30%. And 3, if you can stimulate local honey production, that's a real nutrient-rich source of sugar. And there's potentially medicinal values, so on and so forth. They were very excited, this group, Honey Care Africa. But the issue is, if you go back one slide, if you went to visit these beehives about 4 years into their journey, you would see a bunch of weeds growing all over these hives. And if you walked up to the hive, there'd be no bees in there. And so essentially this organization on the ground really started faltering. And they didn't know why this thing that was so elegant, such a great idea, more money for the farmers, bigger crop yields, and it's good for the market, why it wasn't working. Well, new management ended up having to come in because literally it was getting pretty turbulent over there, and the management just started asking questions. And what's interesting is they kept asking questions, question after question, and finally they got to the most obvious answer. And if you flip to the next slide, it turns out, like you and me, that farmers are afraid of bees. They didn't want their children to be stung by bees. And no matter how much training they had received to go and collect the go and open up the beehive and so on and so forth, they just didn't want to do it. And so if you don't upkeep it, bees are finicky. They will not go be in these hives. So, this is what we learn in development is, even the best ideas don't always pan out. But what's been interesting to watch is now HoneyCare, what they've done is they've pivoted in their model, and they've built a whole system of hive collectors, essentially. Now, it adds costs to their model. But basically what they realize is farmers don't want to do it, so we have to basically build a rural collection network. And that does add cost. And you'll see here, this gentleman right here, he has the beekeeping suit on, and have a smoke thing. And it's really started, the hives are now buzzing again. And when you lend on Kiva, what you're helping finance is really patient capital for not only OGLA to buy the beehive, but when there's kind of new discoveries around, hey, this is not working, this is working, there's a patience when we're lending to people because it creates a real connection, and that connection creates an empathy, and that empathy creates a generosity. That's where we need to go because the commercial banks, they're not willing, their return expectations don't allow for some of these setbacks to allow people to kind of readjust the model. And unfortunately, we're still in a place, not unfortunately, but the hope is that we can help uncover things that people are see as promising, but still need some work, and that's what we're funding on Kiva. So I wanted to give you a sense of that. Let me give you a couple other examples. This right here is like a porta potty that you can fund. It's really a fantastic, well-designed porta potty that gives clean, hygienic options for people in slums to actually go to the bathroom. Today, if you go to, say, one of the largest slums in Nairobi, Kibera, you'll see what's called flying toilets. And sorry to get graphic, I know this is a brown bag lunch here, but people don't have clean, safe, hygienic options to go to the bathroom, and that creates a number of societal ills, including waterborne diseases, right? So this organization basically allows entrepreneurs to buy, and you can see you could finance the purchase of 2 Fresh Life toilets for $725 on Kiva. And this entrepreneur will then basically have these 2 toilets, and he'll charge a few cents per use, not even that. And then over the course of a year, the toilets will basically pay for himself, so he's a toilet entrepreneur, okay? And so it's making him money, it's providing the public a clean, safe, hygienic option to go to the bathroom, and it also has public health benefits. Now what gets really interesting is this organization actually comes and collects the waste. I'm sorry to talk so much about poop, but this is very exciting. This is very exciting. This organization will come, that we work with, come and daily collect the poop, okay? And they are collecting over 10 tons of poop from a slum in Kibera today, and that is used basically for fertilizer. So they're trying to find new ways to create sustainable models, and people are paying for this. And it's still an early experiment. Cow dung is kind of known, as something that has been used for fertilizer and biofuels, things like that. Human waste has been a little harder to commercialize, but these are experiments, frankly, that you wouldn't see when you're just lending on the website. All the great work you're doing, but you're helping fuel discovery towards new sustainable ways of creating a better world. This is a gentleman named Sammy. We're now doing student loans. So if that's something that's interesting to you, education, you'll have seen on Jacqueline's video that the reason why she does what she does is because she wants to help her children. So in practice, when you actually lend to these small businesses, they really, if you look at where the expenditures go, it really is on the family. And lending to women has been shown to actually result in more spend on household issues, things like nutritional spend, school, than lending to men. So it's a pretty powerful mechanism to really benefit the family and the community. one thing that we're curious about is what about student loans in the developing world? Today there's a bit of a chicken and egg problem because letting a student, for example, go to college and not pay back a loan right away, and then maybe letting it be 10 years long with, say, a 4 or 5 year grace period, that's seen as too risky. Banks won't start doing it. Because banks won't do it, there's no repayment track record. Because there's no repayment track record, banks won't do it, right? Well, that's where all of us, the internet community, come in. We can actually break that logjam by trying a first batch of students in different countries, and we can actually try it by different majors, different universities, so on and so forth. And the whole hope is 10, 20 years from now, what will emerge is a data set that says, hey, look, if you allow an 18-year-old girl who can't afford college, and we know that if they could go to college and get, say, an accounting degree, their income potential over their lifetime goes up 4x. Then, and they pay back at a 97% repayment rate. If we can show that, then we can help local banks develop like a heuristic that would allow them to start underwriting these kind of student loans. Because right now there's so many students worldwide who there's just not enough scholarship money to allow them to go and get that 4-year degree. So these are the types of things that you all are financing, and I just let me end with one thing that was pretty. I know you can't see this very well, but this is Emily and 11 other farmers who raised money for seeds and fertilizer from a group called 1 Acre Fund that works in Western Kenya. And if you go to the next slide, when I got to visit her, you can't see her very well right here. She was really proudly showing me her farm, her 1 acre farm. They call it her shamba, and it was just amazing to kind of see how entrepreneurial and clever and all these kind of things that I wish you all had a chance to go meet your borrower. It's always inspiring, and one thing that also inspired me is prior to visiting her, and I have a book recommendation for you all. This book was incredibly moving. It's called The Last Hunger Season. It was written by a 20-year reporter from the Wall Street Journal who went and lived in a rural farming community in Kenya, and it's a beautifully, it's won some awards. It's beautifully written. Really helps you understand, just how difficult life can be, but also the case for hope. In fact, this organization, 1 Acre Fund, that you're lending through, on average, 1 Acre Fund farmers that participate, they double their crop yields over 3 years. So they do simple things like agriculture extension, basically training, like, hey, put 2 fingers right here, then put it right there, and then plant the seed. That results in, the higher corn, higher corn yields. Like just really simple tricks and tips. So I was walking back to her house, and she had like a 1-room house, and I remember kind of we were in conversation, and I saw this. I was looking at her walls, and she had a Barack Obama poster, because in Kenya they're really proud of the president of the United States is from Kenya, right? So there was a poster there, and I'd seen many Barack Obama posters, but next to that poster I saw this sign, which I thought kind of really spoke to why I know we do what we do, and why I love this work. She had, it's more blessed to give than to receive, and the way that she illustrated that is you saw her raising her hand. She's one of 11 farmers. She actually is not only a 1 Acre Fund farmer where she does that methodology herself, but she trains other people in her area on this methodology. So she's giving back. And one story just from right here, I met a gentleman in Pittsburgh the other day. If you go to the next slide, Thomas right here is on the website. If you go to the next slide, he has a small ice cream shop in Pittsburgh called Dream Cream Ice Cream. He has 16 flavors, 8 of which he calls his for-profit flavors, 8 of which are his non-profit flavors. His non-profit flavors, as it turns out, are basically assigned to a cause. So, for example, a woman who was a nurse in Pittsburgh wanted to go volunteer in Rwanda and work as a teaching nurse out there. She couldn't afford the flights, so she basically came to him. She volunteered a few hours in the store, and every time a portion of that ice cream was sold, that flavor, 25% of the proceeds would go towards her fund. And it's been 2 years. She's still out there teaching in Rwanda. I mean, there's so many success stories, and these are the kind of people that I feel like, you're not only helping someone else really help themselves, but really it's a big, massive cycle, I think, of just paying it forward. And what we love to do at Kiva using technology is help the world really help visualize their butterfly effect. Because we oftentimes, I think what creates cynicism is you just don't believe that you can change anything, or if you do things like you don't really feel that feedback loop around what really happened. And I think if we can allow people to connect with what's really happening and how it's really one big virtuous cycle that we're setting in motion, I think more and more people will move from cynical to hope, and will actually participate, and they'll believe that it's possible. And it's not perfect. We saw some of the examples of things like the walls that we keep bumping into, even as Kiva. But I think there's a case for real optimism around the 21st century being a century where we can address a lot of the problems that emerged in the 20th. Let me talk about the final thing that I'm really excited about Kiva. I talked about how one HP employee kind of went home and shared it with their children and did it together. This is a Time magazine cover recently calling the millennials the me generation. And I think more than the money itself, the greatest lever we have is how can we create a culture of empathy. We launched recently something called Kiva U, which is if you have someone who is in K through 12 or in college, you might want to have them consider getting involved. It's basically, we've created lesson plans for teachers, and now they're teachers who are posting up their own lesson plans and how they're incorporating Kiva into the classroom. So for example, a 7th grade math teacher has incorporated Kiva all the way throughout the lesson plan and has noticed that students seem to pay attention more because it's real people that they're talking about as opposed to, say, an abstract binomial equation. So it's an interesting thing around how we can use this platform, and I want to end with a video of one teacher. Oh shoot, I don't think we're going to have sound. That's okay.
No.
Well, this teacher really he's out in a rural town in Pennsylvania, and he's created the $1 Million Kiva Club, and it's really just a bunch of students, you can see here, who are lending money out. And he knows not in the first year, not even the first 10 years will he get to $1 million, because it's a small fund that is recycling every year, and each class kind of passes it on to the next class. But he knows that in his lifetime, he's actually calculated that it'll have $1 million worth of impact. So it's really cool to allow each student, and then each student, you'll get to see previous classes in each student's photo. So it's pretty ingenious how he's using this. And I just wanted to highlight this to any parents, uncles, aunts, out there, that this is something that we think can be a powerful way to get people to connect with someone across the planet and see them anew in an entrepreneurial light, not in a light of pity, but in a light of mutual dignity. So with that, thank you so much, and I'd love to take some questions.
Okay, questions?
So I appreciate the opportunity. I've participated, and I'm really glad to have the opportunity, both from HP's fund as well as from Kiva. Can you tell me a little bit about the cost of putting this together? So of the $25 that's loaned, how much of it is actually going to the people in the field?
Yeah. So here's the cash flow. So let's just use $100, okay? Because it'll be easier math. So let's say you lend $100, and let's say that the loan request itself is $1,000. Okay. So then 10 people chip in $100 to fulfill that loan request. That $1,000, 100% of it is actually sent to Kenya. Okay. Now, how does Kiva first cover its costs? That's one question. We run on tips. So when you make a loan on Kiva, I think we commented this out from the code for HP redeemers of the $25, because we didn't want to interrupt the flow. But if you go through the normal Kiva checkout process using your own money, we'll ask you, just like a waiter in a restaurant, to give us a tip, and we'll suggest 15%. On average, people are tipping us maybe about 7%. So not as quite as good as restaurants yet, but no one's watching here either. It's just you on a computer. Anyways, those 7 cents on every dollar on a tip that's incremental to what you're lending, that last year covered 2/3 of our operating budget, and the final 1/3 is covered from outside philanthropy. So for example, what's so generous about Hewlett-Packard is after 5 years, after each employee has had a chance to recycle the money will eventually convert to a donation to Kiva, which will help offset our operating expenses. So that's the Kiva economics, and one of the ways we try to keep our costs low is through volunteers. So we have about 500 volunteers, 100 staff. That's where we're at, and a lot of the auditing and the stuff that's happening on the ground to make sure that this money's not being misspent is done by, frankly, Kiva fellows who are out there doing random sampling, which is what you need to do to make sure that malfeasance and fraud is not happening. Now, on the ground, there's a local field partner, like Honeycare Africa. And the question is what are they charging to be sustainable? So let's say they receive $1,000 for one borrower, and they posted up 100 borrowers on the website that month. So let's say they got $100,000, okay? So those borrowers now, on average, will pay a 35% interest rate to that local field partner, which always creates a shock. However, a couple things. One, the market alternatives can be much more expensive, like the Village Moneylender is between 80 to 300%. Two, the average profitability of our field partners is negative. So it gives you a sense of the types of partners that we're working with. They're not like Honeycare, they're not yet clearing their own costs. And we want to find sustainable ways. And then three, the average cost, the interest rate has been falling as basically a number of things, technology, operating leverage as these organizations grow. And one of the things I get really excited about is, are there ways to more quickly bend the cost curve through things like mobile payments so that you don't actually have to have field staff go out to a rural village 3 hours away. So that's where it is today. Now, the return on capital, which is the question that I also think about, which is, so if I get those beehives, what is my ROI on those beehives? And does it more than offset my cost of capital, essentially, as from the point of view of the farmer? And there's been studies to suggest that the return on capital are in the triple digits because these businesses are so undercapitalized. So it gives you a sense of why the repayment rates are so high and why it's spread to 150 million people. But it's still, in this day and age, in 2014, in my heart of hearts, if there's, one of the things we're pretty excited about Kiva is how we can actually drive that down. I'm excited about mobile payments, I'm excited about crowdfunding, and I'm excited about a third thing called trust networks, which is, you know how on eBay, when you sell, you get a feedback score, right? Well, and then more people trust you, so you could sell like, I don't know, a flat screen TV, and people trust you, but it's complete strangers on eBay. Well, as people repay their loans on Kiva, I would love to start actually creating like a trust score that would allow them, basically it's like a portable creditworthiness score that allows people to actually lower their interest rates and have them have more market power. So there's all these things that we'd love to do to help drive it down, but this is where it's at today. And so then what you get back is only your principal if that person repays that loan, and then again, if they default on that loan, you lose your principal. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay. Other questions?
Just from a high level, how do these folks qualify for the microloans to begin with?
So the field partners are in the community, and typically what they look for is the viability of the business that they are either planning on starting or that they already are in. Oftentimes what happens is they ask a group of people to form together because it turns out your neighbors in your village really know you better than any NGO, nonprofit that might be coming in trying to do a loan. And so this is what Muhammad Yunus, the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, did when he invented microcredit back in the mid-70s. He got groups of women and groups of 8 to form together. They're called solidarity groups. And it's because the women in that neighborhood, they all kind of know like who is of people of high character that if you were to lend them money, they would really repay. And the way it's structured is, if that group gets that first loan on Kiva, and many of you have probably made loans to groups on Kiva, and they pay that loan back, they all qualify for a second loan of a higher amount, right? So now there's kind of a peer monitoring that's happening within that group of 8, and a peer support. So if one woman's say cow dies, the other 7 women will come in, chip in, and cover it because they're all self-interested in getting. It's kind of like why we try to keep our credit scores good here in the U.S. And so that's also one of the reasons why the repayment rates are so high, is that the group guarantee. And then oftentimes what happens is if someone goes through those group cycles enough, they graduate to an individual loan, which will be a higher loan amount because their character has been basically pretty much approved, if you will, to that local institution. That's how it works.
How do you select your field partners? Are they typically nonprofits or?
Yep, typically nonprofits. We look for field partners. We look at 2 things. One is social return and then financial return. And the social return indicators, they look at things like what kind of services beyond the loan do they provide folks. So for example, Citibank does not provide pap smears. They would, I use that example, but we actually have field partners like Promo here in Bolivia that provides that kind of services, neonatal education, et cetera, because they already have a group of women together. And so we know that comes at a cost to that organization's financial viability, hence the reason why, on average, the organizations we work with are not yet covering their costs, they're not yet profitable, they're unprofitable. Yet that's where we believe the 0% interest capital can actually help cross-subsidize those value-added services in health and education. So that's something that we look for. Another thing that we look for is, we have like sort of non-negotiables around kind of collection practices, pricing transparency, a set of things around kind of do no harm and do right by the client to make sure that people are choosing in a way that is respectful and ethical. Things that would be covered in the U.S. by, say, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, Truth in Lending Act, things like that. The regulatory environment in some of the places that we work, for example, we work in Iraq. We have 3 microfinance organizations there. It's so challenging that we feel like we have to, with the information we can see, make those decisions. Now, there's a number of things on the social side, and then on the financial viability side, we look at things like board governance, audited financials, internal controls. It's a cash-based business, so one of our things is we ask them if they haven't had at a local branch, a fraud issue, then we don't believe they actually have strong enough internal controls, because it is very difficult in these economies to actually have everything go, as planned without corruption, etc. And so we're looking for those types of things. And the neat thing about the website is not everyone day one. Each field partner would get $1 million to raise on Kiva. It can start as little as $25,000, and just like eBay, as they prove themselves and as they mature as an institution, they can actually raise more and more money for the clients, the entrepreneurs that they serve in their community.
Okay, we've probably got time for one more.
What kind of background checks do you guys do on field partners?
The question was, what kind of background checks do we do on the field partners? We do a few different things. So there's kind of things that are regulatorily required, like an OFAC check for anti-terror regulations, and then there's things that just are good due diligence practice. So for example, we like to look at within the management team and the board, kind of get reference checks on them from the local market. And what's nice about microfinance is because it's been around for 30, 40 years, in each country, there's typically a local microfinance organization, like a national association, that has ties with the local banking regulators. So you can actually go talk to them about, we'd like to work in Iraq. Iraq was tough, actually. That came through other organizations that are supporting, like Relief International. They do work in Iraq, and because we trust Relief International for decades, it's just been doing great work all around the planet. We trust their referral. Does that make sense? We work through a lot of referral networks. Save the Children, Relief International, CARE, World Vision, all of these organizations, they've started microfinance units around the planet. And so we trust the quality of their work, and then we co-invest in the stuff that they're setting up. That's the way we find it. All right, well, hey, thanks so much. Seriously, this is, it's not going to only make such a great impact on the people that you're choosing, but really so many people are watching what's happening here with HP, and I honestly believe this is a company that people are rooting for. They love it. You guys, there's a goodness to this place, in addition to the tech DNA and so on that the world recognizes, and to see it play out with 87,000 people in the first month, already taking the time to do this is it's truly remarkable. So thank you for coming, and I look forward to what we can do over the next 5 years together.